So, welcome to the podcast. Quite a familiar face in the piping scene. If you don't mind me saying, welcome, Jori Chisholm. How are you, sir? Are you well?
Doing great. Thanks, Rob. Great to see you. Thanks for having me on. Things are good here. It's sort of fall. It's descended upon Seattle, but your viewers in Scotland and in Ireland will know what the weather's like in Seattle. So it's getting a little cool and gray, but
yeah, it's definitely on the turn
right
here. That's for sure. Yeah, so maybe outdoor competitions aren't going to happen for the next few months. I would say.
I think that's definitely the case here, anyway.
Yeah. Well, we have you on this week's podcast for a very good reason. The world online solos, but we'll talk about that in a second or two. But first of all, I would like you just to introduce yourself to folks who may not be aware of who you are and your website and everything. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I live in Seattle, which is the northwest corner of the States. And I've been teaching piping here since 1999. So I got in early with my website, bagpipelessons.com. And, started my teaching business, just teaching in-person lessons like, people have done for a long time. And then when the internet kicked off and webcams came out, I started teaching online. So I've been teaching online with the webcam since 2003. And that's obviously really picked up. And then in the last, couple of years, it's really picked up. I started out as a kid competing and going to the Highland Games and working my way up through the amateur grades here. And then when I grew up in Oregon. When I moved up to the Seattle area for university, I started going up to Canada and taking lessons up there and playing with bands up there. And I played with the SFU pipe band for 19 years and had a great, I had a really great life-changing experience with the band, winning the Worlds, doing big concerts. And I feel really fortunate that I've been able to make a living through piping for all these years. So it's just something I'm really passionate about, is not only performing and teaching, but trying to find new ways through, like the internet and technology and stuff like we're doing here, find new ways to expand piping and, give more opportunities for people to be part of the piping world and to learn and, have a meaningful, fulfilling experience.
Fantastic. Yeah. And it's crazy to think, man, that this has been going since 99. I remember when it launched. Are we showing our age here by admitting this,
Well, I've told people that there's certainly an element of luck here, because if I was even 5 years older and if I was going to start a teaching business, it would have been, putting flyers up in coffee shops and, just the old way, like the yellow pages in the phone book, and it would have been a different thing.
Yeah.
And if I was 5 or 10 years younger, I would have sort of missed the start of the internet and somebody else would have gotten that website, bagpipelessons.com. So it's definitely sort of a bit of luck there, but I've always been interested in, sort of trying to identify obstacles and, complications and difficulties, and trying to figure out, like, there's got to be a way. And I remember when the first webcam came out for Mac, and at the time I was taking lessons with the greatest American piper, Mike Cusack, and Mike's won all the awards in Scotland and a tremendous solo player and leader. Yeah. So I was taking lessons with Mike, and I was actually flying down to see him in Houston, Texas, a few times a year, and we'd meet up in other places. And then when this webcam came out, I thought, "Ooh, this might be something." So I actually bought 2 of them, and I sent one to Mike, and we did a webcam-based lesson. It was on this early Mac, had this thing called iChat AV. And I actually have a recording of that lesson. It was 2003. And we did the lesson. I mean, it's nothing compared to the cameras and the broadband that we have now. Yeah. But it worked. And I thought, wow, you're getting the immediacy, you're getting the personal connection. He can hear me, he can see me, he can give feedback. And it was right after that I updated my website to say, now offering, and I called them interactive webcam lessons, right? Nice. And now we just call them Skype lessons or Zoom lessons or whatever. And it with the piping and the pipe band world being so spread out, even though it's only been, less than 20 years that we've had this sort of online thing happening, it was, if you go back before the internet and before YouTube and before MP3s, it was really, people were quite isolated, and we'd wait to get the Piping Times magazine, or we'd wait to get the Piper and Drummer magazine. And I remember getting cassette tape that were copies of copies of copies that somebody's granny had taped off of BBC Scotland and Pipeline. And but that was really, we were just so hungry to be connected. So it's really been, it's been a fantastic, development. And I'm often asked by people who are not connected to the piping world when they hear about what I do. And a common question is bagpiping and pipe bands, are they on the rise? And it's like, absolutely the case.
Totally.
I know there's some different statistics that people look at, but my experience is that, people are taking lessons, people have access, people can find community. I mean, just look what's happening on social media with the piping world. It's like, we are there. We are going to our favorite websites and listening to our favorite podcasts. Yeah. And it's absolutely a great thing as far as I'm concerned.
It's a very vibrant scene at the moment. And I think you're 100% on the money. I think social media, the internet has played a huge role in that for sure. So I have to congratulate you on getting that domain name, which was a stroke of genius. Bagpipe lesson, that's incredible. Yeah. So even back then, you were thinking, this is something, so that's kind of what started the ball rolling for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just sort of a development. If you go back, if I look at my original website, these original websites, this was even before there was embedded video or audio. So it's basically like a brochure, just an online brochure. Here's me, here's my name, email me to get in touch, maybe a couple pictures. Yeah. And of course, it's just grown from there as we have audio and YouTube and high quality audio and video and that's just always been something that I've been interested. As I mentioned a minute ago, it's like, this seems like a problem, or this seems like something that is complicating matters. What's out there, and so we build on these other technologies that are digital, e-commerce. Video, chat, all these things. So let's see, it was almost 10 years ago now, I got an email from a reporter at the New York Times. Now, this is one of the biggest newspapers in the world. Yeah. And she reached out to me and said that she was doing an article on online music lessons. And she wanted to ask me some questions. So sure, when a reporter from one of the biggest media outlets in the world reaches out, you respond. So we did a few emails, and then we talked on the phone, and then she wanted to schedule a photo shoot. But instead of sending a photographer here to film me, she sent a photographer to one of my students, who's one of my remote students. So we did a Skype lesson, and this photographer was in the background filming stuff. Anyway, about a week goes by, and she sent me a note, and she said that it's going to be on the front page the following day. Wow. And there's my face on the front page of the New York Times on a laptop. And there's my student, John McClure, is playing, and over his shoulder, there's my laptop. And of course, it was fantastic for web traffic and everything. But even in just reading the article, what I didn't realize was that I was part of a broader trend. Because I was just doing my thing, bagpipelessons.com, teaching online. Seems like a good deal for everybody. But it was part of a broader trend. Students love it because they can find a teacher they connect with. Parents love it because they don't have to drive their kids somewhere. You're not going to be late and missing lessons due to running late. So, and that was 10 years ago. So things have obviously just taken off exponentially from there. And then, the pandemic happens, and I think there's going to be a lot of things that have changed for the better, sort of a silver lining of, all this craziness that we've gone through and hardship. But I think one of the silver linings is that anybody who was a little resistant or just not quite sure they wanted to do the online thing, we were all forced to do a lot of this online stuff. Yeah, totally. And then you go, you know what? I actually kind of like getting my groceries delivered. Or you know what? Even if I'm in town, maybe every other lesson I'll do on Zoom, and then I'll drive across town have an in-person lesson. So I think it's just kind of one of these silver linings of the last year and a half or so has been, just people taking a chance on doing stuff online.
Yeah, embracing technology for sure. And I think my folks are testament to that. Never before has my dad ever looked at the world of the Facebooks or the Twitters, as he calls it. He's managed to get a handle on that. And I know he listens to the pod, so he'll be laughing at this stage. So anyway, I have to ask you, you were saying there about everyday problems that you find and then trying to find solutions. And that's one of the things that motivates you. You're quite an inventor. You've got quite a number of patents out for a lot of interesting products and stuff that we've talked about on the show. And if anything, you've had a Big Rab Show award nomination this year for the blow pipe positioner. Is this something that you constantly work at? You know, you find problems and you go, oh, I've got an idea for that.
It is. And I don't know where that comes from. If it's, it just seems like it's part of my personality, but it's certainly something that I have sort of pursued. I've been playing since I was a kid, 30 plus years now of piping and really trying to be good and trying to make the most of my talents and find ways to get better and playing in bands and playing in the top solo events. And I've also been teaching. So I've been teaching full time for, like I said, over 20 years. So there's a lot of experience there and a lot of opportunity to see the kinds of struggles that people go through, from kids to adults who take up piping in their later years and even retirement, to these sort of hotshot young competitors, to myself, trying to win the worlds in a grade 1 band and win the gold medal and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot of experience looking at the sorts of things that are motivating to pipers and also challenging. So there's a lot of lessons that could be learned if you pay attention. And that's what I try to do over the years, is go, okay, well, so learning to blow steady, that's one of the big hurdles for a piper, right? Definitely. So people have been working on it for a long time, and they're different, people have different sort of techniques or strategies or tools. But one of my first products was coming up with this pressure gauge thing. Now, I didn't invent it. I'd seen this idea, and what I was doing is I make these little homemade pressure gauge things and making them for my students. And then eventually I said, well, here's all the parts. You just make one yourself. But people wouldn't get around to it, and people wanted something that was sort of prepackaged. So then I started this bagpipe gauge, and I've sold tons of them because they work. It addresses a challenge that people have, which is, how can I learn to keep a steady pressure in my pipes? So that was my first product. And then I hope I get the timeline right here. I think my second product was my reed poker. Again, I didn't invent the idea of a reed poker, but I had spent an entire weekend in my father-in-law's shop with little bits of metal and a grinding wheel and trying to come up with the perfect poker. I finally came up with something that I loved, and I just had it and used it for 10 years. And people would say, hey, where'd you get that poker? I said, well, I made it. Well, can you make me one? And I said, no, it was too hard. Anyway, then I figured out a way that I could make these pokers reliably and in a cost-effective way. So that was another product. But my big one was the tone protector. And that's the story with that was, pipers, we spend a lot of time fooling around with reeds, trying to get good reeds, trying to break in the reeds. And when you find a good one, try to keep it going as long as possible. So, and you talk to any woodwind player, really, which is, we're like, our life and our happiness is determined by this little piece of wood,
thing. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So being a North American player who comes over to Scotland every summer, you're really aware of how the humidity affects the reed. So we would come from our last Highland Games of the year in the Seattle area. It's hot. It's statistically the hottest weekend of the year in the Seattle area. It's the last weekend of July. It might be in the 80s, sometimes close to 90. So I don't know what that is but well over 30. So it's a hot day. And then 5 days later, we're in Glasgow, and it's not that hot. And then not only is it different, but you're trying to have the best performance of your life, or certainly of the year, coming right up. So keenly aware of the challenges of changing conditions and humidity and temperature and all that stuff. So anyway, that was sort of the problem. And so I came up with this idea of a humidity controlling chanter cap. And the chanter cap idea has been around a long time. The idea of trying to control the humidity in a closed environment, like a humidor, like you might have for your cigars or and stuff. I know that they have humidity controlling guitar cases and violin cases. You talk to somebody who lives in a really dry place, like in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, and they know all about this. People have humidifiers built into their homes, right? So anyway, put some pieces together, and I came up with a prototype for this humidity controlling chanter cap. Put the little digital readout on it so you know what you're doing. Tested it, and I thought, my gosh, I think this thing really works. And I was using it, and I was testing, I was 3D printing some prototypes and that sort of thing. And this was the first time that I went down this path of actually applying for a patent. So I have patents for the tone protector, and a big thing for me, knowing it worked or feeling like, gosh, I really think this works, was getting it out and getting into the hands of players of all levels, but especially I wanted to hear from the top level players. Yeah. And the feedback has been, it's been very positive. I think that it's been out for 4 years now. And, Pipes Drums gave it runner-up product of the decade. And then I came up with a reed case. So I've got the tone protector reed case, which is the same technology. Well. Yeah. The reeds sit in there. So it's been really cool to just, if I sit back and think about that trajectory of, gosh, this is a problem that I have that a lot of people seem to have. What are some potential solutions? Working through that product development process, finally getting something that looks cool and sort of and connects with people, and then they use it and they love it. And I got to tell you, that first year coming over to Scotland to do my normal competition tour, and that first year coming back after the tone protector had been out a year, it was a really positive and different experience for me, because I was getting all this feedback from people saying like, I love this thing, thank you so much. And it was definitely a shift in my sort of, I felt like my identity, and certainly in my piping career, being from one that was very much focused on, teaching and trying to win competitions, frankly, but then going to being, a bigger part of other people's, when you got something that's sitting in somebody's pipe box, it's on their reed, they like it. So it's been very cool. Well, and then that has encouraged me to think about other sort of products that could come that I could come up with. So
there you go. So the future's bright, really. Yeah.
What's that?
So the future's bright. I dare say we'll see more products coming from you in the future.
Oh, well, it's such a cool time right now because I have my own website. So it's not about, and obviously there are bagpipe shops and retailers that stock my products, and people love their local shops, and that's great. And I'm happy to do that. But there's so much access now. I can create a new product. I can do a launch. I can put it on social media. I can do a video. I can do it on YouTube. I can be interviewed in a podcast. And the barriers for getting your message out are lower than they've ever been. Now, on the flip side, you want to make sure you have a good product, because people are everybody has a platform now to say, hey, this thing stinks, or this thing's too expensive, or whatever. So, the information is out there. And I remember, this was maybe 15 years ago, and it was the CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt. And the quote was something like, he said, if your business model depends on your customers not having all the information, you're finished. And I think about that because the internet, it's all out there. And of course, there's some information that's good, and there's a lot of information that you would say maybe not so good, but everybody has a platform. And I do think broadly in the piping and pipe band world, it's a very positive place. Generally, people tend to be very supportive, encouraging, and there you go. It's been great.
Yeah. No, honestly, man, it'd finally be a sense of pride for you. I know I've been at many competitions here throughout the past number of years, and they are pulling these out of the pipe boxes, and there's one of those, that's one of those. And I've always been fascinated, if people are using them, they obviously work. That's bound to be a big sense of pride for you, I suppose.
It is, absolutely. And I would not put my name, or I would not put my brand behind something that I didn't believe in. On my bagpipelessons.com, I have a little shop where I sell some reeds and some bags and stuff like that. But everything on there is stuff that I personally use and vouch for. So I know that there are a lot more products out there, and I don't stock everything, but that's by design, which is, I want to, it's stuff that I have tested. And the thing about, if you're playing at a high level, and this goes for all pipers, but especially if you talk to the players that are playing at a high level, it's so important that your pipes sound good and that they feel good. And, I mean, even pipe band contests, it's like the tone of the pipe corps it's really hard to see beyond it, right? It's really hard, no matter how good the playing is or how cool the medley is. If the pipes don't sound good, it's just really hard to enjoy it, right? So at that level and all levels, we are, we're trying to find ways to make our pipes sound better, stay in tune longer, be more comfortable. I really think pipers are very practical. And the products that I'm interested they're not, it's not about being cool or stylish, but it's about having something that really works, like on a practical level. And I think most pipers are like that. It's hard enough, so anything that we can do to make it a little bit more enjoyable, more comfortable, make it so you can play longer, pipe stay in tune, all that stuff. That's really what I'm looking at.
There you are. No, excellent stuff. And we'll certainly be keeping abreast of everything that comes across now in the future from you, for sure. Yeah. So yes, for a good reason, we did bring you on this week's pod, because we're aware that the World Online Solos is now launched. So tell us about this event then. How can folks get involved?
Great. Thanks, Rab. So 10 years ago, I started the world's first online piping competition. And this was actually inspired by living abroad. My wife and I were living in Europe for 6 months. She had a work exchange with her company. She worked for a Danish company, and we got the chance to live in Copenhagen. So I was working completely remotely. Yeah. And one of the things that I noticed there was that there are some pipers in that area of the world that were very passionate, but not too many competitions. And then I started thinking about my students around the world. That competition is such a big part of piping and the pipe band world. Yeah, it's the primary way that we a lot of pipers, that's the primary performance venue. We're not doing shows and going to clubs, and I mean, some top pipers do recitals, and there are shows. There are not, and gigs and that sort of thing. But we do a lot of competing, maybe more than other forms of music, right? And as someone who's traveled to Scotland 31 times, I love traveling. I love the in-person events, but it's not without its drawbacks. It's a lot of expense. It's a lot of time. So I was thinking about, is there a way that we can expand the opportunities for competition in a way to make it more accessible for people? So I launched the first online piping competition back in 2011, added in drumming, and did a bunch of them, and they were very popular, and we got hundreds of competitors. And I invented this. I came up with this, basically the structure of how these online competitions work that we have stuck with, which is they're not live. You record your performance at home. You upload it to YouTube. You submit the link to our panel of judges. And then from that point on, that it's just like a regular competition. The judges watch the competitors, they write sheets, they provide the placings. So that was 10 years ago. I got busy with some other things, had a couple of young kids, and tone protectors and other stuff. And I always had the idea that I would bring back the online competition, but the pandemic was that was definitely a spark last spring of 2020. Thought, wow, this is the time. And I know we've all been going through it together, but also people have had very unique experiences depending on your work and family situation and health, obviously. But just to go back to that time, it was very scary. It was unsettling. It was disorienting. We felt very isolated. So I really, truly felt a sense of responsibility to bring back the online competition. So the World Online Piping and Drumming Championships came back last spring. Huge event. I think we had 1,600 entries. Wow. Which I don't know if there's an official Guinness Book of World Records for piping, but I would think that would be the biggest piping and drumming competition. Yeah. Wow. But because of the online thing, everything can scale, right? So we didn't have to book, we didn't have to build platforms, and we didn't have to hire portaloos and have security and parking and all that, because it's online. So as the entries started to come in, I'd just email a few more of my friends and say, hey, we need a couple more judges. And the judges were great. I think we had something like 50 judges. There you go. So we're on our sort of our second year since the pandemic, and we're on a schedule of doing 3 every year. Spring, which is around Easter, summertime, and then a fall competition. I know the seasons are different down in New Zealand and Australia, but we're kind of going with the Northern Hemisphere seasons. So we're in our fall 2021, and we have 82 events. So
82.
Solo piping, solo side drumming, solo tenor drumming, and solo bass drumming. So we use the North American style of graded events. I know there's a different, they have a different system down under. And I know in some places in Scotland, it's just juniors and seniors, right?
Yeah.
But we're using the North American system, which is based on your skill or experience level from beginner, which would be like drum pad or practice chanter, and then grade 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then open or professional for the top level players.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in every one of these grade levels and disciplines, we have multiple events. So if you want to check out the list of events, you can go to the website, which is bagpipelessons.com/competition. So that's the World Online Piping and Drumming Championships homepage. All the information's there. All the deadlines are there. But you can go, and just like you would for a in-person competition, you register online in advance, you pick your events, you do the registration process. And all the events that you would expect: MSRs, 6/8s, hornpipe jig, P-Brocs. Again, it depends on your grade level, what the different options are.
Yeah, I suppose it depends in a way on your ability and what you want to achieve. Like, I'm going to throw myself under the bus here. I have been learning how to pipe now for the past maybe year and a bit now, I suppose. But I've been a drummer all my days. I've been a competitive drummer for about 30 odd years. So, but I could still enter a piping competition at the beginner, even chanter level, possibly coming on, say, at a few 4/4s. Yeah.
I would love it if you would. That'd be great. You can talk about your experience. So that's one of the things that I love about our system that we have here, which is it doesn't matter what your age is. If you're a beginner and you're just knowing a couple of tunes on the chanter, you can enter the beginner category. So you're going to get people of all ages in all of these categories. And, you can enter all the events, or you can pick one. We also have an ungraded evaluation only event. So this would be if you want to be part of the competition, but you don't care about competing. So this basically is you're going to get a sheet from a judge. You're not going to be
invaluable too. Yeah.
You're not going to be ranked against anybody else. So sometimes people will do that. They're like, I just want to get a comment from one of these great judges. Or sometimes they want to play a tune and get feedback on a tune that is not offered for their grade level. For example, we don't have a full P-Broc for grade 5, but you say, you know what, I really want to do this. Sometimes players will want to get feedback on more than one of the type of tune. So I'm going to enter the grade 2 P-Broc, but then I have a second P-Broc that I want feedback on. We don't allow you to enter twice for the same event.
I see.
So you can only enter once for the same event, but you could enter that second P-Broc for that evaluation event. So that's really part of my overall vision of bagpipelessons.com, is to give people opportunities for learning, right? Because I'm really passionate about playing at a high level, but also sharing that. And this getting the sheets is a big part of that vision of, my overall vision for the website is more access for more people around the world. We do have some other events I want to tell you about. So that's all the solo events. We added band. So there's 2 band events. There's what's called traditional pipe band style. So just what you would think: regular pipe band instruments, pipes, side tenor, bass.
That's fantastic.
And then, and I know it's there's some flexibility with the band events. So if you're in a place where your band's getting together and you're playing, you can record as a full band. And we've had some bands do that. If you're in a place where you still can't get together, I know that's crazy lockdown still, unbelievably, in a lot of places. You can record your part separately, and doing those videos that we've all seen over the last year and a half.
Boxes.
Putting it together. So that's an option. And I know it's a different thing if you're pre-recording and splicing together versus playing live, but the idea is to make it open and accessible to as many people as possible, knowing that there's different situations around the world. We also have a freestyle event. That's our other pipe band event. And now freestyle
Right.
Pretty much anything goes. So other musical instruments.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay.
Yeah, so you could bring in fact, we had a great video at one of our competitions last year. They had small pipes, Highland pipes, real pipes, shuttle pipes, accordion guitar, the whole
Wow.
deal. In fact, this one was some players were in Scotland, some players were here in the States. So it was an international
Oh my
collaboration.
word. That'd be
We've
brilliant.
had bands that submit a set with Highland dancers. So it's really
Oh.
quite open. Any other musician or performer, if you're a multi-instrumentalist, you could play more than one part. We've had groups where there's someone who plays a set of pipes and they also play another instrument. So it's totally open. It's pretty open. It says other performers.
There you
Could
go.
be dancers.
That's a big
Could be
bracket
a
there.
juggler. Who knows? Fire breathers. The only thing that you have to do for that freestyle event is there has to be at least one piper. Right.
Right.
So
Okay.
anything else goes. So we're not looking for a rock and roll band here. We're looking for something related to piping, but it could be a rock and roll band with pipers.
You could go full on Chili Peppers, couldn't you? Yeah, have a rock band behind you.
You could do it. I would love to see something like that. Again, this is an opportunity to do something fun, to share your music with the world, get some feedback from our judges, and make it a meaningful, fun challenge.
That sounds fantastic.
We have a couple of scholarships that we give away. For several years now, we've had the Pipe Major Alistair Gillis Memorial Scholarship, and that's a 2-4 March event. And that's the categories are by age group. So go to the events page and you can see, and it's you pick the age group, and then our judges award a first place from each age group, and then we take the first place winners and we judge them against each other. And then there's one winner of this scholarship.
Wow.
Okay. And then a new event for this time around is the pipe, not the Pipe Major. It's the Colin McKenzie Memorial Pibroch Challenge. And Colin McKenzie was my first teacher. We would not be having this conversation if it wasn't for Colin. He was a huge influence on me personally and obviously my piping. He recently passed away. And in order to honor him, and especially his passion for Pibroch and for teaching it, we've created this new Colin McKenzie Memorial Scholarship, and that is a Pibroch event for age 18 and younger. So it's for young people, and it's a full Pibroch event. And I was talking to Colin's family about it, and they're really
that's fantastic.
Excited that this can happen. So
wonderful.
I just wanted a way to honor him. So again, these 2 scholarship. And gosh, I think that's it. So 82 total events between all the different solo events, the 2 pipe band events, the 2 scholarship events. There's one more. I forgot a new event for this time by request. We got requests for this many times, and that is duets, piping duets. So that's a new event.
Hey.
So if you've got a pal, get together. And again, it's pretty open. It's a tune or medley of tunes. I think it's up to 7 minutes. Do whatever you want. But I know that there are some pipers who love doing this duet. So that's another option.
I love the sound of that. And, there's so many events there that there's something for everyone. Even me, who's been drumming for 30 years, I could still play in a chanter event. So I might give it a go. I don't know. Who knows?
Well, that's our hope, is to just give the opportunity for anybody from a total beginner all the way up to the open. So we have absolute world-class players playing in our open level events. And for the open events, we do have real prize money. And that was important for me, that even though this is an online event and it's a little different than going to Inverness or going to the, your Glenfin and Highland Gathering. I want to respect our top level players. And these are professionals who deserve to be recognized as a professional. So you're expecting real prize money. So that's one of our biggest expenses of the contest, is to give real prize money to our professionals. So
there you are, something tangible you can take home. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Can I ask you then, Jori, what are the challenges with this? We've had a lot of discussion especially those last number of months, the pandemic and the benefits and pitfalls of online competition. There's been a lot of debate, even on our podcast for that matter, about the benefits, pros and cons. Are there any real challenges when it comes to organizing an event like this? Well,
what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the word out, right? So we have built this platform, and it's very popular. 90% plus of our participants say they had a great or excellent time doing it.
Yeah.
We get great feedback from our judges. So overall, it's real positive. So we're just trying to get the word out, just trying to spread the word. So that's something that we're always, working on and trying to improve things. Things have definitely improved every time. We find a way to streamline things. One point we were finding out people said, "Oh, I missed the deadline." So then we increased the number of emails and reminders and put a little countdown timer on the website. And then some people said, "Oh, there's too many emails now." So we're always trying to improve. And that's part of my, so, we were talking about my passion for innovation and invention and stuff, but I'm always trying to find how can we tweak it? How can we make it better? How can we make it more fun? How can we make it so that people feel like this is something that they get a lot out of that they don't want to miss? So it's just that constant drive. Now, it's not the same as an in-person competition, and I get it. It's not the same, and it will never be the same. You cannot replace the camaraderie. You cannot replace, seeing your pals in person, hearing a band in person, walking up behind a top grade band at a championship and that sound. You can't replace that.
No.
And we're not trying to, but I think that online competitions, even when the pandemic is over, will have a place because there's just so many advantages to it.
Yeah.
The lack of travel, I know there are other online competitions out there and which are fantastic. And I feel great. I've been able to share my expertise with a lot of people that are putting on their own competitions, and I'm happy to do that. Some competitions are doing a more of a live format where you play live on Zoom or whatever.
Yeah.
There's some issues with that in terms of the quality of the recording that comes across, with latency and
bandwidth and all of that comes into play, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's not really a fair situation. So we've decided to go with this pre-recorded format. And what that means is that you can take as many tries as you want.
Play it 100 times over.
Performance.
Yeah.
You could. I've heard from people, and I could tell you, I see when the videos come in, and a lot of videos come in right at the deadline. So I get it that people they need that deadline, right? It's just human nature, I think. But that's different. So that's different than playing live. I get it. But in a way, you could say that the standard might even be higher because people have as many attempts as they want. They're at home, they're in their comfortable environment. Now, I also understand that if you're new to self-recording and the video stuff, it can have its own challenges, right? So I guess I would just say to someone who's thinking like, "Oh, this isn't a real competition. It's not the same." It's like, I acknowledge it's not the same. It'll never be the same as traveling somewhere and the anticipation and the excitement, but that's not without its drawbacks. Again,
for sure.
I've done 31 trips to Scotland, and once I had kids, it gets harder. Time away from home, logistics, a lot of positives to traveling internationally, but also a lot of positives to being able to do something from home. Definitely. I think you could say the same thing for, working from home, working remotely. People talk about missing that personal connection that you get when you're around other people. Absolutely. But there's also a lot of benefits to being able to do something from home.
That's it indeed. So I honestly would encourage folks to get involved in this, because even if you don't win a prize, you still get a sheet, and that's something for you to work on, and some of the judges that you've had involved with this event have been incredible. So to get a critic sheet on your playing, regardless of your placing, it's bound to be valuable. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the number one reason that people tell us why they enter our competition is to get that sheet. And it's really important to me that our judges are world-class players, top pipe majors, top soloists, lead drummers, band leaders, because I think it's really important to me that they have the credentials, that they've really played and taught at the highest level, but also that they can write a really good sheet. And I'm looking for judges that, can really communicate well, that can be inspiring and motivating and provide that feedback. It's so important. And I think that, that's something that I always look forward to when I'm competing, is to get that sheet. It's a little bit disappointing that at some of these top events in Scotland, they don't give a sheet. And there are historical reasons for that. And you could argue, well, competition is supposed to give the result and it's not supposed to be a feedback mechanism. But it's so important to me that the judges they can get the result right. Obviously, that has to be
Yeah.
They have to do that because it is a competition and people put a lot of effort into trying to get the result they want. But then also having that positive feedback where, it's you want to hear the judge's opinion. Now, all of the sheets are published on the website. And we are the first competition, I think, in the history of the world to do this. We publish an entire record of the entire competition. So, and all of our competitions are on the website, which means you can look at, not only can you look at all the list of prize winners, but you can look at the entire order of play, everybody's name, their tunes, the link to their YouTube video, and the judges' comments and any placing they got. And this is part of my vision of trying to make the most out of this experience. Not only is it a competition, not only are you getting feedback, but all that feedback, all that incredible wisdom and guidance that comes from our judges is now published and will be on the website for forever, as long as there's, as long as the website is there.
Wow. So it's a huge reference for people then, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've already heard from some associations who are saying we are using this library of information. They're using it for judging training. They're using it for shadow judging. It's a great, here's an example. So a common question that I might get from somebody is, what's a good tune for me to play in for example, like a grade 3 2/4 march? What's a good tune? So I could come up with my ideas. I've been teaching a long time. I have an idea of what it might be, but then I can also say, well, go get on the competition website and look at the results and look at what the grade 3 players are playing.
There you go.
And maybe also look at what some of the winners are playing. Is there anything different? Are there certain types of tunes or specific tunes that show up in the prize lists? Right. So then you get an idea of what's an appropriate tune. I mean, I'm always fascinated by that. You go to Inverness and what are the tunes that all the top players are playing? And you get ideas that way. Another question is, what's a judge looking for? What's a judge looking for in a beginner event? What's more important? Well, go read the sheets. You'll see exactly what they're commenting on. And they'll and there's just so much information in there. I wish everybody would do this. Now I know at an in-person competition, you got paper, it's a challenge, but I wish that, my hope is that this will be a model, and then people will go, you know what, this is really great. This would be really cool if the world's sheets were published online. I mean, I think that would be fascinating.
Wow.
Wouldn't you love to see what that sheet looks like for that winning band? Or the top 6 and see what did they say? I just think it's an opportunity there for some really good learning to happen.
Definitely. Yeah.
So you can go, what does it look like when in a professional event in first place? What does that look like? And you can go right in and look at it. So we're working on updating the website to have a more searchable database. So you could search by keywords or by tune name or by competitor. That's in the works. But for now, you can go in, you can see them all.
Wow. So there you go, folks. You should go and check that out for sure. So again, do you want to give people a reminder then of the website, where they go to sign up and everything? Bagpipelessons.com.
Yeah, bagpipelessons.com/competition. So that is the registration page. And join. And if you're on Facebook or Instagram, check out Bagpipe Lessons. We're posting stuff on there. We do live streams. I do a Q&A. So that's going to be on November 3rd. And that's just me on Zoom and Facebook Live answering questions about the competition. If you have specific questions about what event is right for you or how the process works, we've learned a lot over the years through these competitions. So now when you register, you're going to get an email right away with a link to the competitor info page. It's all there. We're going to give you everything you need to know how to record your video in terms of lighting and camera angles. And if you have a smartphone or a tablet, you've got everything you need. These smartphones and these tablets, they have great cameras. They're really good with recording sound, but we'll give you some tips of how to frame it, to make sure that you're not backlit or whatever. We'll show you how to upload it to YouTube. If you've never done it before, no problem. There's millions of hours of YouTube stuff getting uploaded every day from around the world. It's very straightforward to do it. And then we'll show you how to submit your video to the judges. So we've learned over the years all the questions and all the little hurdles and all the little problems, and we've laid it out there for you. And of course, if you have any questions during the process, you can email me directly. I have a small team of people that help me with all the data and all the emails and everything. Mm-hmm. So we will make it, we'll do everything we can to make sure that you have a fun, positive experience. But check out the list of events, bagpipelessons.com/competition. You can see all the events. You can see the deadlines. We do our live Q&A on November 3rd. The registration deadline is November 17th. So from that point on, you'll have almost a month to get in your videos. The video deadline is December 12th. So you want to register by November 17th, and then you have about 4 weeks to get your videos ready, get them uploaded, get them sent in to us. And I would just say, to really have a great experience, don't wait till the last minute. If you're thinking about it, just go for it. Take the plunge, get signed up. We'll get you all the information that you need. You can start looking at it and start figuring out, getting your camera set up. And you got to specify the target if you're going to hit the bullseye. And I think that's what you do when you register. You're like, you know what? I'm going to do this. This sounds like a fun challenge, and this is what I need. Yeah. And then you pick your tunes, you pick your events, and that's your deadline.
And then good luck. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
And not everybody can be a winner. Trust me. I've been competing a long time, and we all love to get first place, but everybody can't get first place. And even you go to the top competitions and it's like, wow, so many good players. But what you're doing is you're setting a challenge for yourself, and you're saying, wow, can I be better? And the way, I think one of the best ways to be better is to set that goal, set a challenge, and do what you can to play your very best. And I think if you do that, you'll get some great feedback from our judges, and it's a win.
100%. It's very exciting. So thank you, first of all, for coming onto the podcast to talk to us about this. I am definitely a fan of the event, and I would recommend people to go and check the website, go and get enrolled, go and be a part of it. But we are not going to let you away without asking some big Rab Show staples. Every guest that comes on the show, no matter who they are, we always ask some big Rab Show staples. So, Jori, what is your favorite cheese?
Cheese?
Yes. Are you a fan of cheese?
I like cheese. I like a lot of cheese. There's a lot of cheese being consumed in my house. Being from Oregon, I'm going to have to say Tillamook. Medium cheddar.
Ooh, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, Tillamook is a staple in the Northwest. So
there you go.
You get big, huge bricks of this orange stuff.
Oh, love it. Love the sound of that. I'll have to go and check that out. Nice. Also, this is quite a difficult question to answer, but we do ask everyone who comes on. Has there been any one particular moment throughout all of your storied career in the piping scene that stands out to you as being particularly memorable? It's a tough one.
Yeah, I think it was the first time I won a big competition. And for me, I was a kid. And, growing up in Oregon, it's 6 hours drive to get up to Canada.
Wow.
But we all did it. And we would go up to the BC Indoor, the BC Pipers annual gathering.
Yes.
And I went up with my teacher, Colin McKenzie, and we'd drive up together. And I was competing in what was called novice, which was grade 4. And I ended up winning the aggregate in grade 4. And I also won this trophy called the Most Promising Amateur Piper. And that really kicked it off for me, because it was the first time that I had gone outside of my small local piping environment. Yeah. And it was really a big moment for me to go, like, first of all, to see the bigger piping world, to see grade 1 bands for the first time, to see top open players, sort of international players.
Yeah.
And I think it was at that moment that something clicked for me, which was like, wow, this is really cool. Maybe I have a future here. Maybe this is something that I could, really get into. And
from that moment, the rest was history then, really? Yeah.
Well, it becomes, I think that was the start of bagpiper being a big part of my identity. And, it's not something that was a big part of, the typical, kid from growing up in Oregon. Obviously, there's a piping scene and there's Highland dancers and their pipe bands, but it was not a typical thing.
Yeah.
So for me, I became the piper kid. I was the only piper that people knew at my high school and that sort of thing. So it really became part of my identity and became something that I just wanted to keep doing. And, people will ask, well, like, how did you get to be like this professional bagpiper that has a website and everything? But it started out with that, taking lessons, loving the music, having a great mentor who encouraged me and that, exposed me to this larger world. And then gradually it becomes a bigger and bigger part of your life. And then here I am doing it, basically what I've been doing.
There you are. And yeah, you're now on the Big Rab Show podcast talking about it. So
I've hit it big now.
I don't know about that. But honestly, again, thank you so much for taking time to chat to us. And honestly, we would recommend every listener, every viewer to this video right now to go check out bagpipelessons.com/competition. Go and check all the information. There is a lot of it to digest, but as you say, pick the ones that you want to target and concentrate on those. Yeah. So have you any parting comments, I suppose, before we say our cheerios?
Just say, thanks, Rab, for helping us get the word out. And thanks to everybody around the piping world who's watching. It's been a crazy couple of years here that we've been through, but it's just shown to me that the piping and the pipe band community around the world is strong. And, at some point, I look forward to seeing all of you at the beer tent.